Welcome to my first impressions of The Crew 2. If y'all played the first Crew, you know the two main things that sort of kind of let it down were its iffy physics and its generic, boring, and overall pointless story. Well, as y'all can see from this paused clip, this kind of looks like the generic, boring, and overall pointless story. For Jiminy Cricket's sakes, this was one of the first cutscenes I got. Everyone's got a moment where they realize why they're racing. You can skip the cutscenes.
Well, for me, it was the day my bike went one way and I went the other, and I broke 2 ribs.
I don't care at all. I don't know who you are, so I'm gonna skip that. Hallelujah! The Crew 2 has skippable cutscenes. Every game with a story needs skippable cutscenes. I guarantee in any racing game ever, if the story actually affects how you play the game, they're doing it wrong. So therefore the cutscenes be skippable. If a racing game has a story that actually affects how you play the game, then they're overdoing it. But anyway, you can also win cars. That's cool. The Crew 1, pretty much how it was done is it was this, money system. When you got enough money to buy a car, you buy it, and then you can put different specs. With this game, it's looking like there's areas in which you can win cars, and you can still buy the cars. And even more, if you have the Crew 1, there's that whole system where you can actually win cars through progress through the Crew 1. All that's its own thing that's been out for a while, so I ain't really gonna get into too much details with that. But, pretty much what I'm saying with that is the progression system in this game seems a good bit better than last game. In some areas. So anyway, that's the car I won. As y'all can see, it's also pretty fluid. It's just, you finish a race, you can actually drive your car, you pick up whatever loot it gives you. I'll get into more of that later. Loot. And move on. Y'all may know what that means if you play other racing game. But anyway, you just pick that up, you get the money, and then you move on. If you win the car, you just keep the car. So that's actually pretty fluid. In the Crew 1, you kind of had to pause and then restart, and then it like resets you. Here, you pretty much just keep driving. But anyway, loot. Yeah, there's loot boxes in this game. And with there being planes and boats as well as cars, that means they're at different points. I haven't seen a loot box in the air yet, but well, here's one in the water. So okay, I'm trying to get it. I go into the water, switch to the boat, but nope, it doesn't switch to the boat. I'll go ahead and say this right now, their switching between vehicles isn't all that fluid if you're trying to do it fast, and given that it's a racing game, you want to do it fast. It takes like 30 seconds before it even registers it that you're doing it. And then as well, if you're in the middle of doing it and then something happens, no, it doesn't switch to what you're trying to go to. It switches to what you did previously and then also resets you away from where you're going. So when you do eventually switch to whatever you're going to, you may very well not have enough room to actually use it. If it's a boat and it resets you on land, which it will if you're in a car, then you're stuck, and then you have to reset the actual boat into the water, and then when you reset in this game, it doesn't reset you to the closest point of where you were previously. It just resets you at a sort of kind of random point. And it's not like it even resets you at a good point either, where you can just point in the direction and go where you were previously. I had to do a U-turn, which it was such a small area, I can't even do in a boat. So then I get stuck, I have to reset again, and I'm that much farther away from the loot box that I should have been able to get in like 3 seconds. That whole scenario there literally should have took like 3 seconds. I was moving towards the water, in the car, switched to the boat, and then I drive to the loot box and get it. What's kind of ironic too, is that whole sequence, I didn't even really talk about the loot box. I talked about how you actually get to it. That actually sort of kind of sums up this game. there's systems in it that kind of look bad on paper, but really the hard part is more of the how you actually get to those systems than the systems themselves. I'll get into more of those systems later on, but as far as the loot boxes go, I never played Need for Speed Payback and probably never will. I kind of got tired of Need for Speed franchise after 2015. But from what I heard, it's generally negative. With this, the loot boxes seem to always give you better parts. Just straight up, they're always better. You're not wasting your time getting them. And they're not required to go get. Maybe it will be in progressing later on in the game, I don't know. But from what it looks like, it's just an optional thing that you can spend time to get. You can also get loot just doing races and stuff. And in the races, you can repeat. Like that Motor Trend Classic video that I already have on the channel. You can just do that race over and over again and keep on progressing your car and keep on getting money. Or at least that's how it is in the beta. Which also in the beta, though, there's a maximum amount of fans you can get, which is pretty much this experience. You can't go over 14,999 because then that put you to the next rank. So they're letting you progress your money, so therefore cars and stuff in the beta, but not your actual rank, so you can't do more events. But at least in the beta, you can spam the events that are open, so that makes me think you actually can do that in the main game. So that's cool too. That means it's a pretty easy way to earn money in parts, so therefore, even though there are loot boxes, they're not a pay-to-win type thing. It's pretty easy to progress to the point of, I really don't think you have to put real money into it. You just play the game. In my opinion, so far, it's even quicker progressing than the Crew 1. It's kind of hard to say exactly, because the Crew 1 was only cars, and then this also has the planes and boats aspect, but to me, it seems quicker overall. This particular point was not, but, well, here's another thing where I tried to switch from a car to a boat, but I'm in a Jeep here. Pretty much everything is forgiven so far, because hallelujah, this is the first game on a PlayStation, literally, that I can think of at all, since like Midnight Club 3 or something like that, they had a Jeep, and Midnight Club 3 only had a Grand Cherokee. Actually, the Crew had a Grand Cherokee as well, but that came later in the game. I don't think that was there initially. This is the first game on release to have a Jeep Wrangler since... I'm serious. I don't think I've played a game with a Jeep Wrangler in it, and I don't even know if it was a licensed one, because I can't remember. Since my dad's Sega Dreamcast. I can't even remember what game it was. It was just an arcade game where he raced this cool-looking, generic late 90s popular cars on, like, a track, and then one of them had a tornado. I guarantee no one watching this knows what I'm talking about, but maybe you do. One of the tracks had a tornado. That's really about all I remember about that game. That's literally the last game that I drove a Jeep Wrangler in. More games need Jeeps. I don't get why we don't get Jeeps more often. They're cool. Especially Wranglers. Those are like the Jeep. That was the original Jeep. That's the best Jeep. In order to actually switch between vehicles, that pretty much makes it to where you have to stay in your Jeep. You can't even really switch out of it accurately. But nonetheless, next thing... There's Jeeps though, so I'll forgive stuff. Here is the sections of gameplay. The 4 main sections are street racing. Oh boy, a street racing game has street racing. I'm not even really going to sell that because I already have a clip on it. And it's very generic. It's just race your cars around city tracks. And then the challenges ensue with it. Everyone has skills and everyone has photos. Photos, you just do what it says. There's not even really much explaining for that, and then you take a picture of you doing it. But for skills, the street races have, like... It's pretty much like speed and slalom. It's just boring. The next one is off-road. It's pretty much off-road racing, but there's like monster trucks and boats and stuff too. So that adds some stuff in it more than just a generic street racing. I'm not saying the street racing is bad, I'm just saying that every game has it. Literally every arcade game ever, I'm pretty sure, has some form of quote-unquote street racing. Even if it's like Wipeout or something that has a, like, crazy speed 500 mile an hour thing, it's still sort of kind of street racing in the sense of you can do whatever you want, and there's shortcuts, and there's nitro, and blah blah blah. Off-road is better than the Crew 1 just because there's more vehicles to use in it. And the next one, the Crew 1 didn't even have anything close to it. And that's Freestyle. Freestyle, the only thing really close that the Crew 1 has is Monster Truck Arena. And I'm not even 100% sure if this uses the arena portion because the monster trucks aren't unlocked yet to use them in events. Again, you can buy whatever vehicle you want, but certain events still aren't unlocked. But everything else with the Freestyle is mainly planes, which I'll show more of those stunts later, but it's basically stunts in different vehicles. And then there's circuit racing. This is more of a circuit racing type channel. I think it calls it like pro racing or whatever, but it's pretty much circuit racing. The challenges that go along that aren't quite as much because it's more high speed basis and it involves more boats as well. But the boats are about as fast as boats get. If it's stock, these go like 150. That probably means tuned, there'll be well over 200. And circuit racing is sort of kind of new to the Crew. There were real world tracks in the Crew 1, but they weren't really used more than just to show them. And sort of kind of in online racing. But that brings up another point too. I've yet to see true online racing. I think you can do the offline story mode events with your friends. That's kind of the point of the Crew title. You race with your friends to get through the story. But I haven't necessarily seen online stuff, but it's also beta. So I will forgive that. But anyway, here's a showcase of some of the events that the Crew 1 just straight up didn't have and are completely different, really. The Crew 1 had slalom, where you're just in your motorcycle or your car and you go through checkpoints that are on either side of the road. Well, this ain't a road and this ain't a car or motorcycle, but there's still slalom. That's cool. And as y'all can see right there, I mean, it's not easy. That barely fits the boat through. There is skill there, and I even missed that one. It was at the end, so it didn't really matter, but still, pretty challenging and fun thing in a boat. The boats handle better than boats, if that makes any sense. Like, Gran Turismo Sport Honda Civic Type R is tighter than these boats. The Honda Civic Type R is more of a boat than an actual boat. Obviously a different game completely, but still, this is a boat. That's just a factoid of information. And honestly, I would say it handles better than a Honda Civic Type R does in Gran Turismo Sport. But anyway, next challenge. I sort of kind of mentioned it previously. The plane stunts. This particular stunt is sort of like the Air Race World Tour thing, where you have to go through the different checkpoints at different angles and stuff. The closer you get to how it looks in the thing is how many points you get. I ain't the best with these, as y'all can see there. Granted, this was the very first one of these I did. But yeah, I ain't the dandiest with these. But nonetheless, it is something completely different and cool. So as y'all can already start seeing, this game actually does truly and really utilize the other types of vehicles instead of just having it be a selling point and nothing else. There's good and challenging events for both planes and boats. So that's definitely a cool thing. I'd already start saying this game's better than Forza just in that aspect because there's just so much more gameplay because there's so many different types of vehicles when Forza's just cars. But I've never played Forza Horizon, so I'll just leave that one alone. Y'all can argue that in the comments if you want. But anyway, final event that's completely different than the Crew. Gran Turismo has the knockover cones challenge. It's had that for a while. Seems like I even remember it back in GT4. It may have been even before that. This is knockover buoys in a boat. So the closest thing I can compare it to is the challenges on the Real Driving Simulator, which is kind of ironic. But, well, this is with a boat, so it's completely different in that aspect. So you knock over the buoys. I'm not 100% what the red ones are. Maybe it's like how some games have, like, the different colors of points or whatever. Like, generally the bright ones are higher points. The darker colored ones are less points. I assume it's that, but I never really noticed, and it didn't matter because the early events are easy anyway. But nonetheless, they're fun to do, even though the early events are easy, but realistically, the early events should be easy. So there you have it, folks. That's a lot of the different events in this game that aren't just degenerate racing. And obviously, there is degenerate racing too. Like, you can race the different classes, you can race the planes, you can race the boats, and then obviously you can race the cars. Drag racing is back, drifting is back. I haven't tested either of them yet because none of those events are unlocked yet. When I buy the cars, I will show clips of that. I'm not 100% sure how much actual specialtating I'm going to do just because there ain't tons of events yet. But there probably will be more clips than the actual specialtating. Just because there ain't really online racing yet and there ain't tons of offline events yet. Though it is just a beta, and as far as I know, your progress does carry over, so nonetheless, it's still good to go ahead and buy as much stuff as you can so you can be ready to do the events in the future if you already have the game. But anyway, here's some negatives, honestly. There's a whole heck of a heap of positives, there's a whole heck of a heap of new stuff, and the new stuff is executed well. For the most part. Apparently, in some of the events now, you can't do them both ways. In the Crew 1, any event you did, slalom, speed, well, not necessarily jump. Some jumps you could, some jumps you didn't. But other than that, you could pretty much do them any direction you wanted to do. In this, maybe it's just for boats and planes, but you can only do them certain directions. I get boats probably can't do it 360, but I think they could at least do it front and back. Because I understand, like, in this area there's land on each side, but there's not in forward and back, so you'd think you could at least do it either of those ways. But no, some of them are one way only, which is kind of a negative, but it's not that big of a deal. But nonetheless, you just have to be prepared for that. You might have to turn around in some of them, and some of them you may need to remember which way is which. For if you try to do them later on in a harder challenge, or if this game ends up having something like a summit event. But anyway, next thing. It's not 100% negative as much as it is kind of convoluted. In racing events, as I said, you can do the same races over and over to get money and loot. But if you restart the event right after you finish it, the loot that you get, which you also have to pick up in general, so that's just something you need to remember. Generally, if you slow down to stop, the loot will just be in front of you, but don't just keep on going full throttle or you probably won't see the loot. Just stop after races. But anyway, for races that you restart, obviously you can't pick up the loot because it's not after the race. So the loot goes to something called your HQ mailbox. The different HQs are the different classes. Street, off-road, freestyle, pro racing, circuit racing, whatever. So they go to those. So then you go to one of them. I went to street racing for this one, just because that was the closest one from the event that I left previously. And I picked them up. But apparently, when you pick them up from the mailbox, they're for all of the classes. But when you're in your HQ, the only vehicles that you can actually buy are those in your class. Like street racing has the actual street cars, drift, drag, hyper cars. So you can only buy them. You can't buy a monster truck, you can't buy a powerboat, blah blah blah. And I don't think, at least not in the beta, you can't actually buy parts for your car. You just have to win the parts. As I said, at least so far, all of the parts that I've won have always improved the car. So it's not just random luck, at least you do improve. But you can't spend money to improve. Which is kind of a negative, but the main reason I said this is because it doesn't really make fully sense to have the HQs. I get that you can buy the cars that go with the classes there, But when you pause the menu, as I'll show in a minute, wait for it. I didn't have this synced perfectly. Nonetheless, as y'all know, I do these videos generally in one take just because I don't like doing scripts because then it's not as authentic. But anyway, this is the pause menu. So, to go back to the first thing, I picked up parts from the Street Racing HQ. This is a street car. So then I go to put those parts on, fine and dandy, that makes sense. But I can put the parts on every other car as well. That's a street car, even though it's a Jeep, so it's better off-road than this, but it ain't quite as off-roady as this. But nonetheless, it counts as street. But those cars that I picked up at the Street Racing HQ, I can use on the off-road car, another off-road car, and the monster truck. And I say it's convoluted in the other way too, because you don't actually have to buy vehicles from the HQs. You can just go to the main menu wherever you are, and then buy vehicles from the catalog area. It doesn't actually have it sectioned off in a way in which it shows the classes, but nonetheless you can still buy vehicles from there. It has it sectioned off where it shows the dealerships like Audi, BMW, blah blah blah. And of course Dodge and Jeep, because Dodge and Jeep are awesome, but y'all get the point. It just seems like you're jumping through unnecessary hoops going to a particular HQ to get the mail for all the HQs, but then yet you can only buy cars for that class in that one HQ that you can also just get at the start menu. It just seems like a lot of unnecessary things, which I would be okay with if you can upgrade your cars at the HQ. Like you can upgrade your street cars at the street HQ, but no, you can't actually spend money to upgrade your cars in this with performance. So the HQs seem kind of pointless is basically what I'm saying. And it's made even more pointless because you can't actually spend money to upgrade your cars. So that's honestly pretty annoying. I hope later on something is implemented in which you can either spend money to upgrade your cars as long as it doesn't add in-game currency, or just streamline the HQs. Like instead of loading into it, it's just a sub-menu on your start that says Street Racing HQ, then you just press X there and then go immediately into it without actually having to load into it. And then see all the unnecessary stuff, and then when you exit, you're at that exact point in a map. Just have it as a sub-menu on the start, and that would be a lot easier. But anyway, to end, the Crew 1 had some glitches in it. I don't really play that much more Ubisoft games other than the Crew, really, but well, actually Trackmania is Ubisoft, isn't it? But that one was free, honestly. That's the only reason I played that one. It's a good free game, but whatever, this is the Crew. But anyway, apparently Ubisoft is kind of famous for glitches, and here's some glitches. In one of the photo mode events, you have to do a donut in Times Square. Sounds easy enough. I went to Times Square. It's actually not angled perfectly, but it is Times Square, as y'all can see there. That's like the big thing with all the ads on it that's always shown in like the New Year's celebrations and the Thanksgiving parade and all that. So anyway, I'm doing exactly what it says. I'm doing a donut in Times Square. So I go to take a picture of it. The load times to actually do pictures are longer in this, but it's a good photo mode, so whatever. I'll cut it some slack. Here's a test to see how long it is. There you have it, folks. That was probably about 10 seconds, but I mean, as y'all can see, it looks good. There's a lot of options in which you can do stuff. You can even rewind a video of it to where you can actually get to a better point. But nonetheless, when I go to take a picture doing a donut in Times Square, exactly what it tells me to do. Wait for it, folks. It loads me back in, which is that many more seconds as well. It doesn't count. Why? I quite literally have no idea. I tried this later on in a bunch of different ways, and the only way I got it to work is literally just I start a donut for like half a rotation and then take a picture of it extremely quickly, and it counts it. I'm not sure if that's what it wanted me to do, or if I just glitched the game at the point of I made it work. But, I mean, the whole point of photography is get to a shot that you like the best, and take your time with it so you can get as good a results as possible. This one I just had to do it as quickly as possible, and not care at all about trying to angle it or whatever for it to actually count. Maybe this is just a flaw in the beta and this will be fixed. I hope that isn't what they actually wanted us to do. Because in all the other photo modes, it actually lets you take your time. Like, there's one for Niagara Falls, where you could angle it however you wanted. You could have it look like looking down the falls, up the falls, different angles on either side's aerial view. It let you take your time there. And you could do it in a boat or a plane or however you wanted. This, you have to be in a car, because you have to do a donut. And you have to be in an exact spot. And the donut only counts if you're just barely starting it. This is after day 1.5-ish, and there's already some glitches, but nothing's all that game breaking. GT Sport, which is sort of kind of considered well polished in a notable franchise and all that, of a different type of racing game, but still, that's the one I know best about, has glitches that happen a whole heck of a heap in its main game mode. This has one or two glitches in a side part. I think you still have to do it in order to progress to 100% in the game. But if you just wanted to do the story mode, or you just want to upgrade your cars and stuff, you don't have to do it. So, overall, I'd rate how it actually plays, like how the physics are and stuff, about a 7 out of 10. It's better than the Crew 1, but it's still kind of blah. But there's so many different types of vehicles in it, I cut it some slack there. I don't think a game could really get higher than a 7 out of 10 with having so many different types of vehicles. So that's fine. I've yet to see a game that has monster trucks and planes, which there is. There's MX vs. ATV Unleashed that has monster trucks and planes, as well as other vehicles, with them handling better. But on to other stuff. The graphics, 9 out of 10. It's not perfect, but it's definitely an improvement over the Crew 1, and there's just so much there again. I don't think you could make everything perfect. The amount of gameplay, honestly, I'd say is about a 10 out of 10. There isn't fully online yet, but maybe that's just because it's a beta, and I have a feeling that is because it's the beta. They don't really want people playing each other online all that much yet. Just because the more you're doing stuff online, there's more of a chance of hacking, and they don't really want that this early on, which makes sense. So I'm pretty sure for how it will end up being later on, gameplay is pretty much a 10 out of 10. It's basically infinite. That's the main reason I like this game. There's so much to do in the Crew 1, and then now there's planes and boats in which you can do those stuff with as well, and they have their own set of stuff they can do too. And in the overall, like how it flows, how well, like the transitions are between vehicles, or how well the actual racing is set up to where you can like do it over and over. Y'all get what I mean. There's good parts and there's bad parts. As y'all saw, the transitions were kind of blah between vehicles. It's fine if you're not really trying to do anything, but if you're in a race, or you're trying to actually get to something quickly, then it's not all that good. That aspect of it's really only about a 6 out of 10, but in terms of trying to do racing just as a normal race, like you're not trying to switch vehicles, or you're not trying to... Really, that's about the only really clunky thing is switching vehicles. That aspect's about a 9 out of 10, so I'd get overall this about an 8 out of 10. 6 and 9 doesn't average to an 8, but the part that's a 6 isn't really a main part of gameplay as much as just doing races is, so 9 out of 10. And then other miscellaneous stuff that I haven't rated, which there's just like how many vehicles there are, how good they replicated some of the stuff they put in there, such as tracks and all that. And then like how well, like frames per second and all that, I guess is somewhat different in graphics. Miscellaneous stuff I'd still give about a 9 out of 10. I've seen very few frame rate drops. I've seen very few vehicle glitches, like a way overpowered vehicle or a underpowered vehicle. I haven't actually used that many vehicles yet, but from what I've seen, they're all pretty good. In one of the races, I saw Fiat keep up perfectly fine with I think it was a Lamborghini, but that's their upgrade system, so that's not a bad thing. Fully upgraded Fiat can keep up with a low Lamborghini just so everyone can use the cars they like. I really have no problem with that. So anyway, to top it off, I'd say my overall rating for this game honestly is pretty much a 9 out of 10. There's minor glitches in there that are definitely annoying, and some of them just straight up shouldn't happen. But nothing's nearly game breaking. And this is just beta. Who knows how much of that will end up getting fixed. This game is already a 9 out of 10, and as I predicted, it's about as good of an open world racing game there's going to be. As I said with the Crew 2 detail announcement video a few months ago, that was 100% correct, folks. For literally like the 15 people of y'all who disliked that video, if any of y'all are watching now, ha! If you're still watching at this point, I salute you with this video, but ha! GG Planet and I was right about that. Y'all don't need to dislike something until it's proven wrong. Everything about that was proven right, so ha! But anyway, you can't deny that, it's fact now. It was looking like from the very beginning that this game was going to be really good, and from what I can tell now, nothing's different. It's as good as I expected, and in some aspects better. The planes and boats having so many different events, I'd say that would be that aspect. And it's still online only, but it's one of the few games out there with an actual story that lets you skip cutscenes. So whatever time is wasted waiting for them to fix servers or whatever, or having it glitched where it kicks you out of online, you will probably save and be able to skip cutscenes. So I don't think every cutscene is skippable, but it seems like the majority, at least in the story, are. So those two kind of cancel each other out. I'm very much against online-only games, but there's not that many offline games anymore, really. So I'm kind of fighting a losing battle there. I don't know why that's a battle to begin with. I don't understand the benefit of having an online-only game. It seems like it hurts everyone. But, well, here's this. I get to fly a plane way too hot picking close to actual racetrack, in which you can see there's people racing on it. There's people racing under me there. They probably got a little bit freaked out from the plane flying the wrong way down. Right way down, wrong way up, whatever. I'd say in this it's probably more the right way down, because that's the view I'm showing. But anyway, there's more people racing there that I'm flying my plane over. And look at how smooth that is. No lag whatsoever. That's extremely impressive for how bad my internet is. This is really cotton-picking smooth. And I'm just on the standard PS4. And crash animation. It's not the best crash animations, but I feel like they sort of kind of do that on purpose. Because it's an online-only game, and just the quicker they reset you, the quicker you go back to whatever you're doing. So that's probably overall the best in an online-only game. And I think if you actually go to photo mode after that, you can rewind and see the crash if you want. So, even though it's not the best crash animations, I think that's on purpose. So, whatever, folks. This game allows for a lot of craziness to happen, like the Crew 1, but there's a whole heck of a heap more you can do with it, with a whole heck of a heap more vehicles there. And just the overall aspects that aren't even those vehicles are better done now as well. The Crew 1, in my opinion, was about an 8 or so out of 10. The story mode didn't always have skippable cutscenes. The physics were kind of blah. And some of the glitches were more game-breaking, as is sold into Crew Logic. But I haven't seen a lot of those glitches that I sold into Crew Logic in this game yet. So as of now, this game's about a 9 out of 10, but I haven't played all of it yet. And we don't know for sure that we're actually going to get a true online portion of it. No true online portion, that would definitely drop the rating. But for now, 9 out of 10, really about the only thing wrong with it is it ain't the best physics in the world, and some of the transitions aren't the smoothest. But still, this is honestly about the overall best true car game I've played on the PS4. Maybe not the best racing, because the physics aren't the best, but games of cars, and also other stuff in it, it's pretty much about perfect. There's infinite stuff you can do. You can just cruise around, and it's about as perfect of a game as you can get. The racing ain't bad, and the crazy events just add to it that much more. And that's most definitely worth a yeehaw.